Okay, so welcome back to this fourth week session, where we were discussing about the implementation part related to the change, and in the last session we talked about the organizational development approach, right, which was a more planned approach, and then we see that how we can plan certain interventions to effectively manage change and implement them successfully. Now, in continuation of that, we are going to discuss a very another important approach, which is known as appreciative inquiry. So, we will discuss about appreciative inquiry in detail, and we will see that how appreciative inquiry is used for bringing about a change in the organization. Now, the kind of approach that is used in appreciative inquiry is different from organizational development approach. As you have seen that in organizational development approach, which is a basically planned approach, the top management decides about it, they make a strategy, and then through people they try to bring about or implement the change successfully using certain behavioral interventions based on social science techniques. And we also discussed about some of these techniques like team building interventions, survey feedback, right. Now, when we are discussing about this appreciative inquiry, we first need to understand what is appreciative inquiry, the process of appreciative inquiry, and then the application of appreciative inquiry when we want to bring about any kind of change in the organization. Now, if you look at this concept of appreciative inquiry, basically the idea has emerged from the field of positive psychology. Now, again you will be asking a question that why we are talking about positive psychology, right. There are two different approaches in psychology. One is based on diagnosis and treatment. So, the idea is that there is some problem and then you plan certain interventions to fix the problem, right. Now, the positive psychology approach is entirely different. Here you basically rely on the strength of the people or the organization, and then you use that strength or the capabilities in order to bring about the intended change, right. So, the positive psychological approach is entirely different compared to other approaches, right. And this idea of appreciative inquiry came out with the research which was carried out by Mr. Suresh Srivastava and David Cooper Ryder in Case Western Reserve University, and they basically coined this term appreciative inquiry, and this term appreciative inquiry, after it was coined, they tried to see that whether it could be applied in organizational context or not, and they also wrote a book which is known as Appreciative Inquiry in Organizational Life. Now, what we are going to look at it is that the idea of appreciative inquiry, how it has been conceived or conceptualized by the authors. Now, if you look at the concept of appreciative inquiry, basically it depends upon what you call the positive things, and all positive things actually form the core. It could be related to your norms, attitude, values, beliefs, which could be termed as positive, and that is what is called a positive core. Now, this positive core is at the center of any inquiry, right. Now, if you look at some of the basic essence of appreciative inquiry, it says that basically the idea of appreciative inquiry is to explore what gives life to human systems and how they function at their best. It means that you want to see that how these positive core could be used to better explore human life, right, and how we can make use of this positive core to provide some kind of meaning to the life. That was the basic essence. Now, when we are talking about the change, that how this could be used for bringing about a change, the assumptions are that when we are thinking about bringing about a change, then we should not start with something that could be called negative, right. So, any kind of questions and dialogue which emerges related to the change should be based on the strength of the organization, the success stories of the past, the values, hopes and dreams of the people, including the change managers and the top managers and people, right. and if you are able to transform them in a very positive way, then you can say that yes, you will be in a better position to bring about a change in the organization. So, the idea here is that if you want to implement change, you need to develop a more positive approach in terms of values, attitudes and beliefs among the people, and in that way it would also relate to better managing the resistance to the change, because if you are going to have a positive attitude about the change, then definitely it would be related to what you call reduced resistance. Similarly, if you are going to work on the strength and successes, so that gives you a more positive direction to go for a change, and that is why the appreciative inquiry has its applications so far as change management or bringing about successfully any kind of change that is required by the organization. So, the idea here is that you use a positive core. Positive core include everything which could be termed as positive in terms of your norms, values, attitudes, beliefs, including culture. Okay. So, all this actually forms what is known as positive core. Now, moving further, as I told you that there are two different kind of orientation. Okay. One where you try to fix up the problem, right. Okay. For example, you know that technology is not working, it is not efficient. So, bring about a new technology, and that is how you move from the current state to a desired end state, right. So, this orientation is more fixing approach, which is known as problem solving approach. That is where you have a problem, okay, and now you need to fix this problem, so that you move to your current state, right, from the past state to current desired state. Now, the kind of questions that you are going to ask here is that what is wrong, right. What is wrong with anything that is not working with the organization? It could be structure, it could be technology, it could be culture, it could be say systems or processes, right. It means that there is certain faults or flaws in any of these areas of the organization which is not working well, right. For example, you find that the strength of culture is not good, or you have a very weak culture in the organization. Now, you need to bring about a change in the culture. So, the problem is the weak culture. Now, how you are going to change or transform the culture, right. So, there could be two different kind of approaches. One is a problem solving approach, okay. That is where you try to fix up the culture and try to see that people adopt the kind of culture that is desired by the organization or the top management, right. The other one is a appreciative orientation, which is different from the problem solving orientation that I have been talking about. Here you move from your current state to a future desired state, not from where you are or from where you were to your current state, because if you keep on filling the gap, the problem keep on coming up, right, and you keep on fixing them. But when we are talking about appreciative inquiry, or the kind of orientation that is used in appreciative inquiry is that you are going to see that what is working instead of what is not working. So, that is where you are looking your strength, right, your successes, and what can be done with the strength that you have, right. So, when you are trying to explore culture, say the same example that we have taken. Now, if you are going to diagnose the kind of culture that is there, then you are trying to find out what are the good things that is working in the culture, and then build up on that, so that you are able to develop a culture which is going to be better, and that is where you are trying to realize the possibilities. Realizing the possibilities means developing on your strength to bring about a change which could be termed as successful, right. So, the idea here is that you need to find out what is good, what is working, and building upon that what is possible to build for the future, right, and how do we go about it. And that is where you will find that these two approaches, whether we are talking about the problem solving approach or the appreciative inquiry approach, they talk about two different things, right. Moving further, let us discuss it again and see what actually happens in both kind of say approaches, whether you are talking about a problem solving approach or whether you are talking about an appreciative inquiry. Now, if you look at the problem solving approach, what does it talk about basically? Right? It starts with what? You first of all you need to identify a problem, right, and then you go for some kind of analysis to find out the reason for the problem. So, you conduct some kind of analysis. For example, you try to identify what are the possible factors because of which this problem is coming, right. Then the managers try to find out the solution based on their analysis of the problem and the reasons that they have identified for that particular problem. And then ultimately what they do? They develop an action plan to implement those solutions, right. So, the kind of metaphor that is being used here is that organizations are problems that is to be solved. It means that when you are working in the organization in order to bring more efficiency and better productivity and performance, you need to keep on identifying those problems which could act as a barrier, look into the reasons, identify what could be the possible solutions, work on it, it means that is an action plan. So, that you are able to solve the problem, that is what we call fixing the problem. So, that you continue to work in the same way, right. But what actually happens with this problem solving approach, you continue to maintain the status quo to keep on performing and remain productive. Now, when we are talking about appreciative inquiry, it means that we are trying to see that yes, what is important. Appreciative means that you try to adopt a more positive approach, right. So, when you appreciate someone, definitely is a more positive approach. So, you try to use this appreciation to find out what is the strength that the organization has, instead of working on identifying the problems, right. So, the approach is entirely different, and then based on that strength you try to realize what could be possible, what might be, right. So, you realize the possibility and then you think that okay, how we go about it, so that we are able to realize the possibilities. Let us take the same example. So, there is a culture which is existing and you find that there are certain problems, the first case. In the second case, you have a culture and then you do not try to find out the fault with this particular culture which is already existing in the organization, but instead of that you try to find out what are the strength of the current culture that you have and how we can build upon that current culture further, so that we are able to realize the goals, that is the possibilities, right. So, based on your current cultural strength, you try to develop it further, so that you reach to the state which is desired by you. So, that is what we call create what will be, right. So, the metaphor that is used here, that organizations are a solution, a mystery to be embraced. It means that you know that organizations need to continuously change themselves in order to remain competitive and viable, right. And based on your strength and successes, you need to keep on moving further by building and developing on your strength, so that you are able to realize the goals and objectives. And that is how we try to differentiate between the problem solving approach and the appreciative inquiry. Now, moving further, if you look at the definition which is given for this appreciative inquiry, it says that it is also a method to develop an organization based on what organizations are doing well. So, the basic idea here is that you need to identify the core strength that you have and then build upon that strength, core strength. For example, if you take an academic institution, a good academic institution, right. So, the core strength of an academic institution could be what? The knowledge and skill based on the faculty, right, which can be used to build up whatever you want, maybe research, right, maybe patents, maybe some kind of intellectual property rights that come out of the knowledge and skill which the people have. So, instead of finding out the fault with the organization, you try to build on the strength that exists within the organization, and then see that how we can make use of that strength to build up the organization further, right. So, the approach that is used here is more like epistemology, right. What does it mean? It means you try to look at the strength, the nature and scope of that knowledge and justified belief. So, what you do? You try to analyze them and see that how you can relate it with belief, values, attitudes, right, and how you can make use of that to produce knowledge, right. In organizational context, it could be say goods and services. In academic institutions, it could be knowledge that is being produced by the faculty, right. So, if you are going for appreciative inquiry, then the idea is that through this inquiry, which you call a process, helps you to generate strategies for change, and that is intentional change. It means that yes, you intend to bring about a culture which could be termed as more positive. Now, look at the kind of culture that you have, identify the strength of that particular culture, build upon that, so that you are able to build up it further and develop a more positive culture in the organization, right. So, now, again we will see that what are the various say activities, principles, and then how do we go about appreciative inquiry, right. These are the 5 principles of appreciative inquiry, like the constructionist. It means that you try to construct to start with, right, that is what you know. So, it starts with identifying your strength and then reconstruct them, that okay, these are my strength on which I am going to build, right. And it starts with what? Simultaneity, that is the moment you start asking a question, right, about your strength, right. Next, it is an open book, that is why it is called poetic. Why we are calling organizations open book? Because in that case you will be able to better explore the possibilities. If it is a closed book, then probably most of the things are hidden and not visible, but if it is open book, then it is open and visible to you, and you will be in a position to understand and explore things in a much better way, right. And then you look forward to those changes which is required by the future. Okay. So, you anticipate what kind of changes would be required, right. So, you try to create some kind of say image of the future related to your organization, right, which you want to go for it, right. And finally, you adopt a more positive approach to it, not a negative approach, right. So, let me give an example. Say you take the case of an academic institution, say like IIT, right. So, to start with, at the first stage, you try to look at your strength, the competence, the core strength, the successes that we have built around in last so many years. Then you start a question that okay, now where we want to go using these strengths, successes, right, resources that we have developed so far, right, and then you start analyzing, right, that is see that what are the things that you have, what you call your strength, right. So, you try to understand, explore and interpret those strengths and successes and the resources, which basically you will use to build up it better, right. And then you try to develop image of the future, look at the kind of image that you have, look at your strength and resources, and then say down the line maybe after 5 years or 10 years, right, because you are looking for the long term changes, right. So, maybe 5 years down the line you want to see that you are a more reputed organization, your ranking becomes better, right. It means this requires what? This requires lot of changes, which that is what we call deep changes. It means that you need to bring about a change in your structure, system, processes, right, to produce good quality students. So, you try to imagine the kind of future that would be important and then see what kind of changes need to be brought in, and that is where you adopt a more positive outlook, right. So, the moment you think about greater changes, right, long lasting changes, the moment you think about these kind of things, basically you are thinking basically to go for more deeper changes, which would help you to realize the possibilities which you have decided maybe after 5 years, that there would be much better improvement in your ranking, reputation, image, right, as an academic institution. Now, moving further, what we are going to discuss is what basically is done, how we go about it. So, as I told you, to start with, first of all you need to appreciate, value the best that you have, right, in terms of strength, resources and everything. Then you envision what would be, what would like to have, maybe after 2 years, maybe 1 year, after 3 years, right, and then you engage with in dialogue with whom? With the managers, the stakeholders, right, that okay, with the current strength and resources where we want to reach, that is what we call realize the possibilities, right, and see that what needs to be done, right, and then everybody collaborates in the process, explore the possibilities, right, and finally you generate a new narrative, a perspective. Okay, this is the new perspective which could be say termed or conceptualized, okay, some kind of document that we have about the future, like vision document 2020 or vision document 2025, which is nothing else but the possibilities that the institution wants to realize by engaging in a process of inquiry building upon their strength, right, and that is how we go about appreciative inquiry. Now, moving further, this is an example that I can give you, that how it goes out, right. When you are talking about appreciative view, it means that you are looking at a more positivistic approach, and that is where you are going to ask the right question. For example, if you look at this glass, you can ask two different kind of questions, right. What could be the questions that could be asked? What do you see here, right? So, the questions that you are asking, if you are going to make it a more positive one, then you say, do you see a glass half full? Or you can ask a question, if it is a negative tone, then do you see this glass half empty, which shows a more negativistic approach. So, in appreciative inquiry, you use a more positivistic approach to ask questions, and then based on that you are going to build up, right. So, when we are going about exploration and inquiry using appreciation, you try to realize on your strength, okay, and you build on whatever is positive in nature in terms of your attitude, values, beliefs, culture, because that is what is going to help you to realize your goals and objectives. Now, moving further, let us look into the cycle, how we go about it, right. Now, you can see that in between you have a positive core. It means that whatever you do in this process of appreciative inquiry, that is what actually happens, you are going to adopt a more positive approach. It means that you are going to build on your strength, right, in terms of positive values, positive attitudes, positive beliefs. Okay. Now, here you see the strategic focus. It means then you decide what is your aim or goal which you want to realize in the future, right, and for which some kind of changes would be required. So, these are the four different say phases of this particular cycle, which starts with discovery, right. So, discovery basically you try to appreciate the best thing in you or in your organization, right. So, discover the best of what is available with the organization in terms of strength and resources. So, that is what we know as appreciation. Then based on that you try to innovate, dream what you want to realize. So, when we say realizing the possibilities, basically you are going to dream out what exactly you are looking forward to yourself as an organization in the future, right. So, envisioning the possible, what is possible based on these strengths. Okay. Then what you do? Once you have envisioned the possible for the future, you go about innovating, and then how you go about it, building the ideal. It means that based on your strength, you try to build up an organization, right, which could be able to facilitate a better change in the organization, and that is how you go about it, and that is where you go for collaboration, and that is why it is known as co-constructing. It means all the say stakeholders participate in the process in the design of the organization, which is going to facilitate effective performance. And finally, what you are going to do? Yes, that is where you are going to implement what will be. So, but it does not end here, again you move to this. So, it is a cyclical process through which you try to keep on focusing on what could be realized by your organization based on the positive value system that is there, right. So, this is basically the process through which appreciative inquiry happens. So, when we are discussing about this appreciative inquiry model, a 4D model, let me give an example that how it happens related to a company. So, I have taken a hypothetical case here of a manufacturing company, right, which wants to develop the capacity for innovation to expand its R&D and go for more market share, right. So, now if you look at this process going back, so what is the strategic focus? In this case, the strategic focus here is this one, innovation for R&D and better market share. So, in this example, your strategic focus, or this is also called the affirmative choice, would be what? Improving your innovation. So, basically you want to go for more innovation in your products and services, so that you can achieve a better market share, right. Now, once this strategic focus is defined, you move to the first stage, that is the discovery phase. Now, what happens in this discovery phase? Look at this example, right. What you do? The company basically try to explore the best thing that it has, right, and identify the common factors related to those success stories, right, because these success stories are built upon the strength of the organization. So, this is the discovery phase. So, you are looking at the kind of innovations that you have been based on your strength, right. Then you move to the next stage, that is the dream phase. Now, in this phase basically you are going to think about what kind of innovation you want to be, innovative organization you want to be, right. So, in this phase basically you see that how you go about it. So, you include leaders, resources, right, their behaviors, right, the processes, right. It means that in order to become a more innovative organization, you need to bring about some kind of changes in your leadership, your resources, the behavior of the people, even your infrastructure and the processes, which is required for the change. So, that is where you try to create a vision of the future. Look at this, right. That is what you want to do, envisioning the possible, that is where you are trying to build up the future based on what you have, right. So, based on your strength, you see that what kind of changes you need to bring, so that you can build up the future. Moving to the third stage, that is the design state. Now, in this stage what actually happens? You use different kind of models, frameworks of the future, you map them, see what are the resources that is required, what kind of support you need, so that you are able to build up the future. So, the design state you bring all possible changes using certain models, frameworks, right, looking into the resources that you have and engagement of the support that is required from all the stakeholders in the organization, because that would be required to create a vision of the future, right. And finally, the destiny phase, where you want to reach, and then see whether if you are going to implement the kind of design that you have based on this, whether you have been able to realize the possibilities, where you have been able to create a future which you had desired, right. So, basically what we have done here, we have talked about all the 4 stages here to realize the possibilities, right, and that is why I have given this example. Now, moving further, look at this, what actually happens here, how do you go about it, the process at each and every stage, storytelling, witnessing creates the energy field. What does it mean? It means that you start with something that is positive in terms of image, in terms of action, in terms of inquiry, everything whatever you do, right. So, these are the processes through which you go, and then you try to internalize them, right. So, it is a spiral cycle, you can say, where based on the strength and success stories of the past, you create the energetic field to realize or to basically create a vision for the future, and then you imagine, you go through the process and you engage in some kind of positive action, so that you are able to realize the destiny or what exactly you wanted to achieve in terms of goals and objectives, especially related to the change, right. So, what is more important here is that creating a more positive image about the organization based on its strength and resources, and then going through the process of exploration to take a more positive action. So, it is a kind of spiral cycle that we have talked about, right, because the entire process of AI is more cyclical. So, one cycle is complete, then you move to the next cycle, right, because you need to keep on building based on your strength and resources. Okay. So, moving further, what kind of positive image and positive actions are possible? These are some of the examples, like placebo effects, right. How the placebo effect, it is a very positive thing that is experimented even in many cases, like even in medical studies, that placebos are so effective as a drug. So, actually in placebo experiments, what is done is that instead of giving actual drug, they give some vitamins or some other capsules which does not have any substance or content related to the drug, but it equally works well. It means that you have created some kind of positive action that leads to what you call positive action, as a Pygmalion effect, right. So, Pygmalion effect is also a kind of you can say a positive action, where supervisor expects better thing from their subordinates, and then in return, since we have developed a more positive approach to performance, and we tell our subordinates that yes, they are very good, they can produce as much as possible. So, this kind of expectations really work, and then subordinates do very well, and this is what we know as Pygmalion effect, right. Then coming to the sports imagery, that is used in the field of sports, where you try to visualize the world class athletes, and they could be acting as a role model, and then it could be cited as a significant contribution to the victory, okay, and then you try to act like them, right. So, you are going to get some inspiration from them in order to be like them, right. Then inner dialogue, where you have a dialogue with yourself, it is called self dialogue, right. So, this self dialogue actually helps you to improve, provided this self dialogue is in the positive direction, right, like yes, I can do it, yes, I think I am confident enough and I will be able to take it. So, these kind of dialogues are more positive, when we say yes, you can win or I can win. So, these kind of statements basically reflects a positive dialogue, right, which we do with ourselves. Then cultures, how the cultural changes are happening, right, and whether these cultural changes which are happening are built upon the strength of the organizations or not, right. So, what kind of culture existed say 25 years back, or what kind of culture we have today, right, and how we have been able to build up this organization based on what we had, successes, past stories, The only thing is that you should not get trapped out of these successes, right. That is very, very important. Then affirmative capabilities, right. Affirmative means that you should always think in a very positive manner, okay, where there is no place of saying no, right. So, you should always say yes, I can do it, it is possible, right. So, this reflects a more positive affirmative capabilities. So, when we go through this in process of inquiry, when I am talking about imagine and inquire, basically it should be based on the positive images that we build up or positive actions that we take. So, positive images and positive actions both are related in that way. Now, based on this analysis of positive image and positive actions, we are moving further to talk about appreciative organizations. Now, what we have been talking about, that how we can use appreciative inquiry to build up an organization, okay, which we have envisioned for the future. So, if we have been able to build up that, or we have been able to create a system through which we have been able to build up the kind of organization that we want on a regular basis, then that could be termed as an appreciative organization. It means, this is the organization which try to continuously increase the capacity of the people, right, so that they are able to build up a organization of their choice, right, and that is what is going to provide a more meaningful purpose to the organization for their existence, right, and that is what we call a appreciative organization, right. Now, if you look at the use of appreciative inquiries, right, it could be used for initiating changes with a positive mindset. You can also use for developing vision, mission statement, right, strategic planning, because your strategic focus is very, very important, and make sure that you start with a more positive image when you are talking about strategic planning. Then how you go about designing, redesigning the systems based upon the requirement with a positive approach. Then using that, how you go about bringing a change in the processes and services that is required, right. This is related to design phase, and then how you improve initiatives. It means that you build upon those strengths, in what way you have been able to do it, and for that if there is any cultural change is required or not, right. It could also be used for community development, right, where people come forward with a more positive approach to bring about a change in the society and the community. Some examples that can be given by like the initiatives the government has taken, like Swachhata Abhiyan, right. So, the cleanliness drive, if it is taken with a more positive approach, it means that you try to develop a image where everything needs to be neat and clean, whether it is house, whether it is road or anything like, right. So, if you have a positive mindset, that then you will not engage any such activities which defeats the purpose of this cleanliness drive, right. So, if everybody collaborates and work with this positive mindset, then probably you will be able to create a place which could be called neat and clean, okay. And the strategic focus is what? Bringing cleanliness in the community, society or wherever you live, right. So, these kind of things can be developed provided you have a more positive attitude, work with a more positive image and engage in positive action, right. So, you need for that what you need to do, you need to bring about a change in your orientation from negative to positive, right, and then see what could be done, right. And then you also need to say look at your identity, shared values and the culture. This is related to the culture. So, the kind of culture that you have. So, you need to inculcate a kind of culture where everybody thinks about keeping things clean, right. And then there is a climate, you also need to establish a climate of continual learning and inquiry, that how you can keep on improving that cleanliness, so that you could be said that okay, this is a place which is worth living, right. And then how people are going to engage themselves. So, this talks about renewal of the group energy, hope and motivation and commitment. So, all this is required if you really want to bring about the kind of change that you expect at the macro level, right. And that is how you bring about a change in the culture and the language. So, everybody talks about it, everybody is concerned about it, everybody participates in these kind of activities, right. and if that happens, probably it would lead to better outcomes, not only for the organization, even for the community and society, right. And it also helps in improving the working relationship, and you will be able to manage a lot of conflict which might be there, because somebody wants to keep things clean, somebody does not want to keep things clean. But if everybody goes by the same kind of value system, okay, and engages in positive action, collaborate with each other with the strategic focus to clean things, then you can go about it, right. And finally, what we are going to discuss, this is the emergent field, what is actually happens, right. So, it starts with this one, right. So, discovery phase, design phase, right, and then you move to the next two phases. So, both kind of activities happens, divergence and convergence. Convergence, so you move from divergence to convergence. So, where people with a different attitude, different kind of activities, different kind of say expectations converge together, right, to bring about a purposeful change. And for that you look at here what is written, converge in coherent purposeful action. So, everybody converge their activities with a positive mindset to work together, to collaborate with each other, so that they are able to develop an organization which could be called a more effective, a more sustainable and competitive organization, right. And this is the process through which we go about it to bring about a change in the organization. So, that is all. Thank you very much.